Hey, yo, what up? Episode 2, Big 2 Podcast. Craig B and Merencio are here for you. Merencio, what's up? How you doing?
What's up, man? Hello, NSL world. Great to be here. Another exciting day to record another pod for the Big Two podcast. Let's get it. We have an exciting topic today.
Cool, that's what's up. Yeah, what's on my mind is the actual player ratings for 2K. That's always a big deal. Like we waited for the season to end and for the new game to be released, and then we were all hyped up about these ratings. And then they had another rating update when they released the next gen version of the game. And there's always some sort of complaint about different ratings. And one of the things that I look at is, let's say you got two players that are rated 88 and they play the same position, but is one actually better than the other? Who would you choose?
Oh, yeah, that's a great conversation. Also, one of the things, it depends on position, right? Because sometimes an 88 rated guy on the center position, it's not the same thing as a point guard and stuff like that. Same can be said for speed, which is another conversation, and I know we're gonna touch on that because if you don't, I'm gonna bring this up. But on the overalls, man, it's just so many things that contribute to a guy being good in 2K. And there's a lot to be said because we all are into our teams, right? So we all think that we're going to overachieve, and we are all looking for the next 2K glitch guy, or the glitch lord, or the glitch god, as it were. We are looking
Right.
for the Jared Greens of the world and stuff like that, and the Anthony Randolphs for the ones for the people who are older in the 2K madness. But man, 288 guys.
Yeah,
Uh,
280.
what are their tendencies? That's one of my questions. How are their sliders tilted to? Are the is a three ball a good way to do it? Because if it's an 88 guy, one in the center position who can't shoot, and an 88 guy who's a guard and who can shoot the three, and I think the sliders and the game in itself is tilted to the 3 point ball. I think I would lean maybe 7 times out of 10 to the guard because of how the game is going. That said, we can only look at last year when a big man, we can say that a big man, which was Giannis, won the MVP, and the runner-up was AD. So you have a dichotomy of that, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different
Who would
ways
you
to
choose,
split
by
it.
the way?
Who would I choose?
Yeah, the
Well,
88 guys.
the guys. Well, let's actually go ahead and dive into that. Uh, for comparison, let's take a look at Trey Young and Chris Paul. They're 2 point guards, and they're both rated 88.
Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah. Okay.
here we there's also another thing which is controversial, but we'll have to talk about badges, right? Because badges dictate. Supposedly, I know there are some badge truthers in the NLL world, and some people think they just don't matter, but to me they do because the game says they do. So let's look at it. Let's dive into Chris Paul and Trey Young. Hey, Trey Young, do you want to take sides? Do you want to go for Trey Young or Chris Paul? Do you want to, or do you just want to talk about them both at the same time?
Let's just talk about them both at the same time. I don't want to appear biased because I have Chris Paul on my team.
Cool.
I just they just jumped out at me because they have the same overall, but they're really two different kinds of point guards and they're really two different areas of point guards. Whereas CP3 is more of the traditional floor general type, and Trey Young is a scoring guard, a scoring point guard per se. I mean, he's too
Yeah.
small to be a shooting guard, so he's more of a scoring point guard. But I just marvel at, okay, well, these guys are literally they have the same when it comes to 2K. They have a very similar player template, and all of this is based off of player templates, and they just stick a name on one, and then they give it various tendencies, and that becomes, superstar A versus superstar B. And the idea that I'm trying to get at is that so much, like right now, if you had to trade one of these guys, you would get way more value for one over the other.
Correct. But that's because it's a dynasty league, and potential, the B word, right? But Trey Young has a lot of current realized potential, but it's all about what can he be and what can he be for the next 10 years, and that's how the value is tilted in our league. Correct.
Yeah, and that's why it's interesting, because when you're basing your trade off of this player's rating, okay, so this player is rated an 88, all right?
Yep.
And I'm going to trade, hypothetically, a couple first round draft picks and maybe 2 player assets. How long do I really anticipate that this guy will be on my team? And the logic behind that is that so often, and it really hasn't happened yet in this particular league because it's sort of new, but as most of the veteran GMs can witness, is that most of these players typically stay on teams for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Unless it's just like a bona fide, untradeable guy. And what we've seen in this league is that pretty much anyone is tradable. I've seen, since I've been in the league, the few short months I've been in the league, I've seen 3 90 rated players traded.
Yeah.
So it was Embiid, Lillard, and LeBron. Okay, so
Also,
when
Trey Young, just as we are on this topic, Trey Young did move. Trey Young moved on a trade, so from the Mavs to the Magic.
Okay, I missed that one. I wasn't paying attention.
And there was the Durant trade, so it was more another guy that moved, another 90 guy that moved.
Okay, so when you're looking at a 90 rated player, or a player like, let's say we got these 288s, what is it that you're looking for when you make this deal? Are we looking at, okay, this guy is 88 and he can do this and this and this, or this guy is an 88, so he must be better than every other point guard in his position?
Yeah. Well, again, in a dynasty league, it depends where you are as a team, of course. If you are on a winning team, maybe a piece away and stuff like that, you maybe look at a guy on the more on the veteran side. But this league is all about value and value construction and value building, and that's my GM style. I always look to try to add value in trades to make my team better and stronger. So Trey Young is the clear best NSL pick for as an asset. However, there is a tool in 2kratings.com in which you can compare both guys. So
Right.
Actually, Chris Paul would have a 235 attribute advantage over Trey Young because he's a two-way point guard and he defends. So if
Right.
you are a team that is looking to compete and is that one piece away, and you're looking for the ring, that elusive ring, you can make a solid and logic argument that you have to take Chris Paul in this case because the guy is like 90 perimeter defense, lateral quickness, and help defense, and Trey Young is just abysmal. However, you wouldn't see this trade happening at all, in which most of our guys would pick Trey Young over Chris Paul. So that's where I'd start with it.
Right, exactly. And that's where we start looking at, okay, well, what exactly am I looking for in my team building? Am I building my team today, or I'm building my team for 3 years from now? Because that's kind of, that's really kind of the logic that we have to go with, because when you're looking at players, like for instance right now, just to throw it out there, I'm looking for 3 and D guys. When I first came into the league, I was looking for combo guards, right? So now
Hmm.
I'm looking for 3 and D guys, and most of the 3 and D guys are rated about 78, 79, 80.
Yeah,
Okay, but
correct.
they're all different in what they actually bring to the table. It's just not 3 and D. There's just different variations of that same thing. Like for instance, uh, if you take Trevor Ariza and Jay Crowder, I think there's like a 2 point, no, there's a 4 point differential in their rate. I think Ariza is a 74 and Jay Crowder is a 79. But when you compare them for the game engine, Ariza is a better player if you are not going to rely on him as a 100% starter.
Oh, okay. So you and of course, if you're taking a Ariza, you're looking at a fifth option on a team if you're starting. But I can assure you that most GMs wouldn't would prefer to have Jay Crowder than Ariza just because of age, and that is something that caught my attention in the early days of the league that shall not be named. That you were not afraid to pull the trigger on guys that had pure 2K value, and you were not afraid to surrender actually real assets that people valued in order to get that 2K talent. Even if 1 or 2 years from now, you would have to bite the bullet because that would be an aging team and stuff like that. But you also knew how to counteract that with the old FA system, which is another podcast whole by itself. But I just think that's actually brave of you to do that because your perspective of team building is so much different than mine. But for example, a guy like Chris Paul, you got Chris Paul for, in my view, maybe 50 cents on the dollar, because you gave away so little stuff, in my view, again, for an 88 rated player. But because he had such a huge salary, and because had Lattice's team is going in a whole different direction, it was like the perfect storm for you. But it was one of the first moves that you made, and one of the first moves that you seeked out, like the underrated vet that can give you like a superstar ratings. So now you have a superstar, two 2K superstars in Luka and Chris Paul, just by seeking 2K value. So I thought that's a good perspective, and very interesting for our listeners to know how your mind thinks. Because when I saw that, I was like, that is a 2K pro ID 2K patented kind of move. A lot of people are not gonna get it, but I know exactly what that guy is trying to do. You know.
Well, a little more insight on that. That trade, yeah, it was one of the first trades I agreed to once I knew that I was going to have cap space. And this goes back to the last part we were talking about being mindful of the cap. This is the situation. We have a team that was poised to be mediocre for the next 2 or 3 years with an existing superstar player on the roster. Because there's a superstar player
On a
on the
rookie
roster,
contract.
on a rookie contract, right? So he's basically the best value in the league right now because all the other equivalent players are making 30 million while he's making under 10. So he's making a third of what these guys are making. The thing is that this team, as it was never going to get better. It was not going to be good enough to land free agents, and it wasn't going to be bad enough to capitalize on draft picks. So I had to make a move that was going to make the team better now, so that I could capitalize on free agency 2 or 3 years from now. And so in 2 or 3 years, CP3's contract is going to be up. Nurkic's contract is going to be up. Luka is going to be up for his extension, and all the other guys that I pick up will either be coming off for their deals or are already gone. And so that team is going to have a winning record. I'll be able to position myself with cap space that I didn't have to trade away to make a big run in free agency. And that's why I wasn't too worried about it right now. My main thing was just, okay, let's make the team win now. And then in 2 years, when I can use my draft pick, I can decide, okay, maybe I want to bring in another young player, or maybe I want to trade in for another asset the same summer that I can capitalize on free agency. And that's what makes the deal beneficial for Lattice, because Lattice has a ton of player trade exceptions. So at any point over the next 12 months, if Lattice decides, hey, you know what, I think I want to bring in a player into this trade exception, and I can flip him, because there's talk about Lattice's team not having draft picks for the coming draft. But he can alleviate that by trading players into those trade exceptions and then flipping those players later for additional trade exceptions and draft picks. And I think that the trade exception is an undervalued trade asset, and that's what happened with the Boston Celtics and Hayward. You know, at the time we did our last podcast, there was no sign and trade for Hayward, but they ended up doing a sign and trade where basically all they got was like a second rounder and the trade exception, which was worth about $28 million. So the trade exception lets a team that's not sure where it wants to go right now get some sort of value for the player and be able to make a winning move later on down the road. Now, Lattice is in a weird situation where he's not looking to win right now, but he can use that player trade exception to bring in an asset and then flip that asset to extend that trade exception. I don't know if he's thought about that, but that's what I was looking at. You know, I was just looking at, okay, well, he's got all these player trade exceptions. He can trade players into that later and then flip them out again to extend the value of those trade exceptions. And the trade exception is an undervalued trade asset. A lot of times when you see players go out for what is perceived little player value in return, you know, when we're talking about additional players or player vouchers, draft picks, but you go, okay, well, they didn't really get anything. But yeah, they did, because that player trade exception allows you to bring in a big money player without having to send out that salary, because now you can trade for a guy even if you don't have cap, because you can bring him into the trade exception.
I just want to point out, because I'm looking at this deal. So it was Chris Paul, Dennis Smith, and TJ Leaf and Musa. So I don't think this one generated a trade exception. I think this was because you had cap and he had cap. Was that correct?
No, I think it generated an exception for him.
But did it though? Because it was supposed to be a 29 million difference in the favor of Phoenix, and I don't see the trade exception related on the trade, and I don't see it on his team page. The biggest exception that he has is one for 15 million. So I don't know what's that about. I don't know if it wasn't registered or something, or it wasn't supposed to, because if both of you guys were under cap, it wouldn't generate a trade exception. That's my understanding. True. But I could be wrong.
Either one of us could be wrong. I don't know. Maybe I was looking too deep into it. That would have been my logic. You know, that would have been how I done it. You know, with a player that's going out with 40 million. I didn't know that he was already that far under the cap.
Yeah, I'm just looking, because I was looking at his transactions to try to see the chronological order of things, and he was like wheeling and dealing before the Chris Paul trades also. So it is expected that he would be under cap, but I'm not sure that's correct. So maybe Lattice could answer us on the channel about this particular topic. But take us through some of the some of the plans that you have for Chris Paul, and why did you decide to bring him in? Because Dennis Smith Jr., TJ Leaf, John Musa, they're not looking like world beaters, but they're on the timeline that Phoenix wants to do it. I think he was more than glad to give away $41 million dollars in contract and get some sort of value for an undervalued asset and like Chris Paul. But what do you think how does Chris Paul fit into your team?
Floor general, and he's a two-way player. He's, and this goes into badges. Badges to me are a king. I mean, they don't matter to some other GMs, but the badges allow me to trade for a player that other people don't value because of age or lack of a certain skill set. So Paul has 49 badges, 45 badges. She has 45 badges and Luka has 49 or something like that. So his
I'm comparing them
value.
here. It's 49 badges. 49 badges.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So the idea, and this is just like how I think, and I don't really like to get into too much about what I'm thinking because of competitive advantage. And then by all means is my way of thinking a guarantee to a championship is just how I like to think. I trade for badges because it allows me to get lower rated players. All right, so a player that somebody doesn't value as much because they're 74 or 75, if he's got badges that I think will help my team, then I'll say, okay, yeah, I'll take that guy. Because that makes him better than he actually is according to his overall, which is the reason why I started this particular topic, because the overalls don't really mean as much. So, and I'm probably going to change the whole game with this conversation, but my team has 3 floor generals, and I'm trying to get a 4th one. Okay, and so what's happening is that the floor general badge is allowing those other players on the roster to be just a little bit better. So if a guy is an 80 or an 81, if he's on the floor with a floor general, then he's probably going to be an 82 or an 83 because all of his offensive stats or attributes are going to go up. And if there's also a defensive leader, then that's just another boost. So that's why so CP3 is a floor leader, he's a defensive leader, and he's a floor general, and so is Eric Bledsoe. They're both. Okay, and so where Luka is only one, and I think Luka's the only one that has a gold floor general. The other 2 are like gold and bronze. So, and those badges do not stack, but it allows me to stagger the rotation so that one of those 3 is on the floor all the time.
Yeah, just for context, I was just about to say what you just said, because they don't stagger. They're not going to be piling up as a floor general, like having four floor generals on the court at the same time. It's not going to give you a super powered team, but you can stagger them, and and you can make different types of rotations where you have a dominant guy giving +1s or +2s to everybody and makes them shots. At the end of the day, it's just that effect piles up into more scoring and a better team overall. And a guy like Chris Paul, who has, check this, 20 gold badges, that is a true 2K superstar. You have guys who have higher overalls, but their badges are not there yet. They usually 1 or 2 versions of the game away. So where the guy is going to, the badges are going to reach or match his type of overall, and therefore his output on the game is going to be that. So it takes a while for the badges to get there. So that's why we have like guys, even guys like Luka. When he first got into the league, his rise was so quick that he although he had a higher overall, he didn't have necessarily a high number of golden badges or good badges for that example. And a second topic that I'm going to bring up is that the floor general badge was so OP around the 2K11, 2K12, maybe 2K13 years, that most people didn't know its value, aside from guys who really had their ears onto the ground, because like such guys such as Green Meg and yourself. And Green Meg had like two he traded for guys that most people wouldn't trade for, just because of this particular badge, and that led him to alongside Jared Green, who was a 2K glitch and a superstar on his own, but that led him to a championship. And so this badge was out of the it was just uncomparable. You couldn't have a better badge than floor general on your team.
And I still think that's the case, which is why when I was asked about taking on like an Eric Bledsoe, who everyone is just really so down on, and I was just like, you know what, this dude's got like all these different badges. Yes, please give him here. What do you want? Okay, here, take it. Take this, take that. Because I'm thinking that the logic behind as a new GM coming into this league and wanting to put my stamp on the team, but also understanding some of how a team is built in this league, especially when it comes to free agency. When you have a mediocre team, you can just kind of forget about it. You can, which is why they're making adjustments to the system. But you can come in, and if your first instinct is to throw out everything that's already there and start from scratch. Okay, I want to throw everything out, and I want to build my team from the ground up with young players. Okay, well, a new GM doesn't know that when they do that, that they have a snowball's chance in hell of acquiring anything through free agency, because the record is going to be bad for the foreseeable future, and they can bid all 99 on a free agent and still not hit. So
based on the old system, I just want to have that disclaimer over there. That's a conversation for another pod altogether. Right. But I just want to have that disclaimer, because that is based on a node sort of thinking, and on that point, I just want to say that there is a value that we don't see, is that people, when they try to rebuild and stuff like that, it's just that they want to see and follow their own players. And sometimes we forget that, even in trade discussions, sometimes it's not about the actual value. And I'm a value-driven guy, so I'm always looking to try to gauge the value that this guy attributes to another guy in order to offer a fair trade proposal. But sometimes this is just as simple as, I just want to trade for this guy because I just want to follow him. And if he becomes a superstar, at least he's my superstar. And sometimes you ended up giving yourself into a hole, digging yourself into a hole just because you didn't evaluate your team enough. It was a competitive team and you blew it all away just because you wanted to follow your guys, which has value. It's just not for me,
Well, yeah, it definitely has value, and that's just one of those things where the whole idea of these leagues is to have fun, And if I can get my favorite players on my team, then who cares if I'm competitive or not? As long as he's on my team and he performs, and I'm happy with what he does, then I could, I might as well be in hog heaven. Because the idea is to have fun and not to be too competitive and get too, wired about it. And I think that was part of one of the reasons why I switched teams in the other league, in the old league, is I switched teams because burnout, because I was originally Utah, and that team was actually doing pretty good at the time, and Brooklyn came up, and I had been trying to trade for Dwayne Wade since I entered the league. So when that team became available, I was dissatisfied with a series of odd occurrences that happened during my playoff run, and I was just like, you know what, it's time for me to jump. There's a chance for me to have Dwayne Wade on my team. It's like I obviously can't trade for him now. There's no GM, so I switched, and I was.
Yeah, the funny thing about that one, just real quick, because you switched, and then some guy came in and radioactively radioactively threw a bomb
Killed
up in
that team.
there, and then like 3 months later, then I joined in. So I'm still mad at you for not holding onto the ship a little bit longer, just so I
Uh,
could get into a better situation. Because then I took over the Jazz. But keep going. I interrupted you.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. That guy. I don't even remember who that guy was, but that guy. He was in the league for such a short period of time that people are crediting me for how bad that team was when you
I know.
took over.
I know.
So that's the thing about it. He was there for like a blink of an eye, and that team at the time had a glitching Kevin Martin, Rudy Gay, and a still prime Kevin Garnett, and so that team was good, and I was a huge Kevin Garnett fan, and that was the reason why he was even on that team. And I could not wait to get Kevin Garnett on the Nets once I jumped to the Nets.
Yeah, I remember
And
that one.
yeah, and I had Wade, and I was happy, and I was just like, okay, cool. I got my favorite player. I got a team that's going to be pretty productive. And I think by the time I was able to get Garnett on there, he was basically over the hill. And then I had I think I had a couple playoff runs, and then we got to the point where the long-standing GM of Miami left, and I was like, "Oh God, I have to go to Miami now because that's where I live." So it's like I was like, "I got to go to because that's where I live," and I jumped to Miami because that's where I lived, and I really was happy with that. And that's the whole okay. I have to get my favorite player, or I have to be with the team that I follow, and stuff like that. And that kind of that that turnover made it more fun for me. That was what made it fun, was just being able to do whatever I want. And thankfully, I don't know whose idea was to allow a GM to jump from team to team, but I think the first couple of years we had that rule, very few people switched. And I think that to this day, very few people ever really switch because they're just so invested in what they have built so far that
Yeah.
they're reluctant to leave, and that's reasonable. And I just
And I can
sometimes,
understand that. I can understand that for
yeah, that's
sure.
fair. That's
You
completely
get
fair.
attached to your guys, and to your vision.
Yeah,
That's probably a better way to put it. It's not. It's some to some people it's about the guys, but to some people it's also about the vision and what you're trying to construct and all the picks that you traded for and the value that you traded away. So there's a lot of layers to this. So it's difficult to change around unless you're a guy that is not afraid to wheeling and dealing and try to just switch things up. More brave GMs off the top of my mind. You were one that traded. Ladas was one that jumped from team to team also. Just so you have a better opportunity, for example. But also you had that qualifier that you needed to be a playoff team. On that, man, I just want to, as we start to wrap this up, I want to raise two topics.
hmm
We have the 2K on 2kratings.com again. The 2K system, it divides teams as tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 based on
right.
the overall assets of the team. I didn't know that. I knew that just on my research. I had never come up into this page just because I look for players most of the time, and
Mhm.
they just uh, rate them as tiers. And one thing that we didn't approach is the influence of the tendencies on the overall output of a player, which I think is a really underrated aspect, and it is an aspect that in which I look for in trade. So I'm kind of giving away one of my secrets over here, but I just want you to comment on those two topics.
Well, as far as the tiers goes, I think they're a little bit they're deceiving in the sense that where you it doesn't account for the glitch players. So you got a team, there's tier one, tier two, tier three, and it doesn't account for the glitch players that are on that roster, and there's really no way to. And the glitch players, as we all know, are just players that for whatever reason they just do really, really well in 2K, and sometimes You can point to athleticism as one of the reasons why. But then you have a guy like Rudy Gay who doesn't have the same athleticism as he's had, 4 or 5 years ago, but he's still capable of.
Retains value, right? As an
Yeah, yeah,
athletic player.
exactly. He's still
Also, they don't take away. They don't take into account because it's impossible the injuries. All the things they can do is just nerf a guy, but you can never take into account the injuries and how is this guy going to come back from the injury. So a guy like a prime example is the Houston Rockets. They have Boogie Cousins and John Wall, both guys coming back from serious injuries. But
right.
although they were nerfed, they still have tons of badges and tons of good ratings. So Houston Rockets, for example, is a tier 1 team, and that could be a beastly 2K team, but not necessarily due to injuries and guys coming back from injuries. Not at all a good mirror in terms of an NBA output, right?
Right, because exactly. So, I like I mentioned in the last podcast, I think that the Rockets are probably going to be one of the best 2K teams to play with if you're into playing with the game on that level, because you have great playmakers. You have playmakers in John Wall, Harding, playmaker in DeMarcus Cousins, and these are guys that will, even if you're not controlling that player, they're going to make a high IQ decision, whether it's on offense or defense. And that just makes it easier to play with that team. And of course, I haven't looked at Cousins because I know I can't get him in free agency, but I'm sure he's got at least 15, 20 badges. And that makes him a high value target for a team that's in position to get him, because even though he's only rated an 81, I do know that much. He's only rated 81, but I know that his badges.
It's not like you're scouting him or anything, right? It's not because
Right,
of that.
yeah.
You just know off the top of your head, just
Well,
like that.
what happened is, like, I said, okay, well, if he comes back, let me see what he looks like. And what I did is I looked at what his overall was, and I just glanced at some of his ratings. Now it's like, okay, well, he's not going to be somebody that I can get because of, record, of the team, and where I need to be able to put my GM points for my bids. And that may change a little bit with the system here, but I think that any team that's in win now mode that has a winning record, that they should be looking at DeMarcus Cousins. That's just, even if you don't start him coming off the bench, a center that can rebound, score, and shoot from the perimeter is an invaluable asset. He's probably going to be, slow as molasses, but once he gets down to the post, he's going to be able to make magic, and that's an invaluable asset. I would have to say that any team that picks him up is a playoff, a finals contender easily, simply because of the value that he brings. If he's coming off the bench, you don't want to have to, your bench center matched up against DeMarcus Cousins. What any version of DeMarcus Cousins, you're going to get toasted down there. So that's a clear advantage that is going to be underappreciated unless
Yeah, if you
right
have
now.
that guy coming off the bench, you're a pretty good team, right?
Yeah, easily. Yeah. You can say DeMarcus Cousins is my bench center, and holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, he's got 20 badges. 20 badges for a guy that hasn't played in basically a year. I mean, I don't even want to look at them.
Yeah, a good comparison for good comparison. He's almost on the talking overalls. He's almost on the level of Ties, right? And they couldn't be more different. They're maybe Ties is rated 80 or 79. I think he's 80, and
He's
Boogie
at
is
79.
81. But
Yeah.
there's no way. I haven't even looked, but there's no way Ties has 20 badges and that amount of good badges in 2K. So you have your comparison right there in front
Right,
of your
exactly.
face, right?
So, in fact, yeah, he has, I think, six badges, maybe 10. Somewhere around between 6 and 10, somewhere around there. So, yeah, and overall, they're pretty much the same. In fact, when you change ties to power forward, it becomes an 81 or an 82 or something like that. And the change of positions was going to be part of this topic, but we're running long, so we're going to have to drop
Yeah.
it. But yeah, that's a prime example, and to me, they're both value players because you figure I can take Dice and move to the power forward, and he's an 81 or an 82. He has a lot of value in that regard because he's an underrated mid-range shooter, and he's a lob threat. So
Yeah.
those are important. Those are important qualities in the game because this game, for me, historically, I've always gotten toasted by teams that have players that are lob threats. And so it's just because you just never know when that's going to happen. And so that was one of the things that I was looking for. And it could be argued that if I was concerned about having a lob threat, I could have kept Wendell Carter Jr. And I just thought that if I moved Wendell Carter Jr., it gave me a player that was going to give me much more win now value in Eric Bledsoe. And so that's what that move was about. Whereas I think he's been traded twice since I moved him. I don't know where he is now. I know he's moved a couple of times, but it's not.
Yeah, he's on the Heat now.
He's on the Heat now.
Yeah.
And the Heat were making a comment about not being ranked in the top 10. And
that's correct.
No, yeah, and that's just because I don't want to. For me, top 5 is whatever I can do, and I was doing that pretty much for the draft for the most part. 5. Once you get to 10, it's just like at that point anything can happen. So I don't really rank beyond that, and with free agency coming, those power rankings are going to be totally different, based off of this thing and that thing. And
when free agency hits, it's gonna change the whole dynamic once again. So that's why we called it a way too early power rankings. But I'm glad we've given heat to the Heat to go on so they can have like locker room talking and stuff like that, and bulletin board material to motivate the guys. So and Pete is a really savvy GM in terms of 2K. So has always been sneaky good in having his guys play to the maximum of their potential.
Of course, and that's the reason why he took it. He took he took it a little bit to heart. So, and that's fine. And that's just competition. We all
that's pride.
Yeah,
pride. We're proudful guys. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I tell you what though, and I didn't really get into it before, but I don't, and I'm sorry, I don't know his name. Rootsy's team. I talked to it's Memphis. Yes. I talked to him like my first few days in the league, and he made a comment to me that made me really love his GM style. I can't really emulate it, but he made a comment that, and this just goes to the thing where I say I really learned from talking with the other GMs. He made a comment that he was more focused on young defensive players. And so he made me reevaluate my thought process to a degree. And then you gave me a comment. You gave me a juicy piece of information, and I was just like, you know what? I can make a tweak here and have a more competitive team quicker. And so that started the snowball of me just sending everything out and pretty much keeping only Luka and Theis and a couple of young players, and then bringing in all these vets. And because Russi's team is a really good team. It's going to take a while for them to get really super competitive, but the groundwork is there, and I think that his team is my favorite team. I think that his team is my favorite team, and I'm always going to be looking at them to figure out what to do next. And it won't really matter if they make it to the finals or not, but I just think that his team has like the most unrealized potential upside because of some of the players that he has on his team and some of the things that he's looking for. And like I say, along with a couple little tidbits that I get from other GMs, I love this place. You know, it's because the information flows a little bit more freely, and I will tell you that I'm the first person to be stingy about certain types of information. I'm an open book. I will answer any question, but I'm a little bit stingy because I'm so competitive, and I am guilty of not wanting to do certain multi-team trades because I don't want like this other GM to get better and things like that because I consider them competition. And so I and that's I'm not competitive to a fault, but it does drive some of my thinking. And like, for instance, like let's say if I was involved with a trade that was going to give you Russell Westbrook, right?
Yeah.
And I would be hesitant to do that deal. I would be hesitant to do that deal because, like,
Even
I
if it's
want,
good for you in terms of value. Even if it's good
yeah,
for you
even
in
if it's
terms
good
of
in
value.
terms of, yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, I still want to be able to beat your team, and even though we're good friends, I. I will help you. I will help you do subtle deals that bring in more role players, and that can be the difference between wins and losses, also. But
Yeah.
I'm going to be really reluctant to help you bring in like a superstar player unless we have a conversation and you say, look, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, and I want to make this deal, and we kind of come to a quote unquote gentleman's agreement about how it affects both teams and stuff like that. But I'm just really competitive that way, and
Yeah. Based on
it's
that,
it's
I don't expect a lot of deals, a lot of Hornets Bulls deals for the season, guys. Just giving you guys a heads up. But that's just competitive fire, right? And
yeah,
I'm okay with that. And I also I like Rudzi's team a lot too. I like some of his guys. He's unapologetically driven to the defensive side, and he
yeah,
just looks for his guys and he trades for them. He was really bummed out. He had to lose Marc Gasol and a couple of other guys. I just want to, as we're about ready to wrap this one up, I just want to give a shout out to on another the other podcast, 3D1C. Clem made a comment. He said that if he had gone through Portland, that he would have beaten the Bulls, the Bulls who had swept the Eastern team, the Eastern Conference. So I just want to say a shout out to Clem. We're good friends. I love his confidence. I think he's gonna have to put up on the court. I can't remember the season record, but it just goes to what we're talking about. Guys of competitive spirit and have confidence in their team. I personally think I would have beaten him. It's a moot point because neither of us beat Portland, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm guessing that this new season will give the Kings an opportunity to walk the walk, you know. So I just want to end this one on a shout out to Clemmy, and this was fun, man. This was a very good topic of conversation, and thank you once again.
cool. Yeah, I'm glad, man. You're welcome. I'm glad you had time to connect with me. We were supposed to do this a little bit earlier, but we had to change the time. So I'm glad that you were flexible with me. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to banging out, as much as these as we can. As long as people
It's a
enjoy
lot of
it.
fun, man.
Yeah, as long as people enjoy it, I'm definitely game to keep doing it, and I will keep working with you to come up with the different little topics and stuff like that, little insights, and we'll also continue to shout out at different things for different teams and stuff like that, because this is this whole thing, this whole community is a family, and that we all deserve some sort of shine. And for the record, it'll be the last time that I ever talk about the Charlotte Hornets because I hate talking about my own team. I
I'm sure
really, I
I'll
really,
make you. I'm sure I'll make you talk about the Hornets a lot more, and you're just gonna keep dodging. But that's just
yeah,
part of the fun as well.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I hate talking about my own team, but I really like to see the other teams shine. I like to see these guys' visions come together, even if they're visions that I don't really align with. I like I like to see the success of other people, and that's why historically I've always been so open with just conversation in general, because I just want to see the other success of the other GMs, other people that are around me in my circle and things like that. And I'm really, really excited to see how this season, pans out. I'm happy to see that we're starting to make progress with all the different things that need to happen to get everything up to speed. And I'm just really hyped to see what happens next, where all of this is going to go.
Yeah, just one quick last shout out because we had like big news this week. The new GM for the Jazz, Jason Pitts. Just want to welcome him to the league. Man, you're gonna have a blast being a part of this league and being a GM of the Jazz. I just want to wish you good luck. And hopefully these pods also bring you some different perspectives on how to value your own players and what they mean to the league and to the game, and that will certainly hopefully help you out in deals and going up. My doors are always open, as are Craig's doors. He's always been very receptive of me when I was a young GM, so just whenever you need whatever you need, just give us a call, okay?
Yeah, no doubt, definitely. In fact, when I saw his name, I thought he was my nephew because I got a nephew named Jason Pitts. So I thought it was my nephew. I was like, holy, is that? No, it can't be. So I don't know. I haven't actually talked to him yet, so I doubt it. But it's like I got a nephew named Jason Pitts. So yeah, so definitely congratulations for joining up. And you got a team there that it looks like you probably want to clear your cap. I see you're trying to trade some of those big salary guys. There's plenty of GMs that'll make you some good deals on those players, because those are high value players right now, especially Lowry and Love. Their salaries are a little bit high, but there's a playoff team that's going to make a move for one or both of those guys, or a team that would like to be a playoff team and will make a move for one or both of those guys to totally change the direction of their franchise. So again, congratulations. Welcome to this crazy family, and we wish you good luck. Take it easy.
Cool. So this wraps up another edition of the Big Two podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. This is Merencio signing off. So please.
Peace out. I'm out of here.